And I have I'm not sure where that noise is coming from.
I just hit the record, Linda. Is there something about having both of those cameras on, maybe? I mean, I don't know. I'm turning my mic off, but I'm not sure where the echo's coming from.
Not this one.
Oh, the sound's coming from the TV.
I think it's the TV doesn't have a mic. I turned this mic off and it just changed.
Can you hear us,
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes, ma'am, I can. And I'm not getting any echo right now.
Okay, that was the TV. So I have to give credit to Karen that she met Ronnie and I think Michael's. And they were talking when they were in line, and then Karen said, "Hey, Linda, I met this really terrific lady who would be a great presenter for us." So, it's that easy. Okay, so we'll let Ronnie introduce herself. And I'm not even sure how to say your name. Frostad. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So go ahead. Let me see where's my stuff. You're gonna do my button. Actually, do my button. I can do it. If it turns around, I can. I'll do your button. Okay. Hi. I'm Frostad, and I'm a sculptor. And I'm the owner operator of Frostad Atelier Foundry. So we met. I meet everybody. I talk to everybody. I think it comes from teaching and all of that, but it's a very old process. I still teaching the old way. Sometimes I had to convert to some of the new technology. I am anything but a techie. I have Joey who does that for me, and Linda. People do. If I had to do the technology part of it, I would just be holding up pictures for you to show you. So a little background about me. Everyone always asks the question, so I try to get it off the plate. Is how did I get into this? And how do artists become artists, really, if you think about it? So I grew up in a house of art. My mother is a painter, and she had paintings constantly. I grew up smelling linseed oil, and it's just a lot of memories when I smell that still. I never was an oil painter. I messed around a little bit with some drawing and watercolors, but was very inspired by her. And even though she did commissions quite a bit, because people saw her work as word of mouth, but she was a stay-at-home mom. She never went professionally. And so that's just how I thought, and that's just how it was. So when I got in to high school and was doing ceramics, I was just really enamored with it, and that's all I wanted to do was sculpt. And she said, you know, you can always do your art, but you need to have, you know, something stable. You could be a starting artist, and I don't want that to happen. So I did go to school. I went and I did dental hygiene for a number of years. So things happen for a reason, and the good reason was that's why I met my husband, and had enormous support. Went to UC Davis. I'm the type of person that I have my mindset on the sculpture, and I just want the information of how I can get what is in my mind to get it there. So I'm a rule breaker. I just can't imagine, even though I worked for someone else for a number of years in a whole different field, this is my passion and it's my love. I've been so fortunate to have support. So that's how the first foundry opened up. I got my first commission, which was for a library foyer. It was terracotta, water-based clay. That doesn't do well in public settings. I didn't know that. But I did 2 life-size figures, and that's really what started it off. And I took that work to a foundry to have molds made and have it cast, and it was just taking forever. I was so frustrated. I was a crazy person about it. So I went to the foundry and I asked them, how hard can this be? And get all these stories, and what I found was just this god-awful, horrible steel looking factory that was just a mess. So I offered to come in and try to organize and watch my work. It was a selfish thing that I was wanting to follow my own work through there. I had a deadline, and I ended up staying at this foundry for almost a year. And it was just taking any business sense I had in organizing that foundry and following my work through. And in that time, I met foundry workers and befriended everyone in there, met clients, and just was so enamored with everything that when my project was complete, I wanted to do a partnership where I could be the organized entity of the business and work with the clients and the art and still do my own sculpting. And it was a man that was an old Marine that had the foundry, and he just didn't want to partner with a woman. So that was a good thing, even though I cried my eyes out all the way down the hill from up in Plasterville. And I came home and I told my husband, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm opening a small foundry. And he said, I don't think you understand this. And anyway, long story short, I opened a very small foundry in Rockland, here in Rockland. It was over in the business park in Atherton. And it was a very small little place, but I needed somewhere safe because I knew that I would be spending some nights and doing a lot of the work myself. I had no equipment. I had no employees. Forget about clients. I just thought those would just happen. I didn't really care because I was going to sculpt and I was going to cast, and I figured I'll just figure that out. And so anyways, it was a lot harder than I anticipated. I needed a crane, didn't have a crane. I didn't have a forklift, but I did a little business loan, set up just a little core area, and got this one guy that was a welder. And he taught me to weld. And so I started just doing little stuff like that, and go there and do dinner. As soon as dinner was over with, and my youngest child at that time was in 8th grade, said goodbye, went to the foundry. Story is like endless at that foundry. But went over and stole a cherry picker that pulled engines out of trucks from my brother that had a parts shop. I said, I'll give this back to you someday. Never did. And anyways, then I found out that it was really rough. It's a rough thing. And I was not well received in the world of casting because it really was a man's world. Unfortunately, I'm not having opinions about it. I just wanted to do my art. And it's so expensive to cast that I knew that I'd have to cast for other artists. Then came, well, I'll go teach. I'll still have my foundry. Hey, let me open up an art gallery. Let's exhibit some of this. So opened up an art gallery in Grand Bay. I had an art gallery. I was teaching at Continued River College. I had the foundry. It just went that way for a while because I was not well received, and I knew that I had to get out there, and I knew that I had to prove that I was capable of making this happen. Traveled up and down Washington, went to any foundry that would allow me to go in there. People are secretive about the whole process, and I thought, well, if I'm going through these foundries, how can I pick up their whole process in 5 minutes? It was. But the good that came out of all of that bad was that I knew how I didn't want to be. I wanted to share all of the information that I was gathering. And so then I was there for 5 years, and then McClellan Air Force Base closed and was open to the public, and they had an old bronze casting, steel casting foundry from World War II, where they used to cast the steel engine blocks for P-38s and P-39s. And it was a dump, but it had cranes, it had a core pit, it was like 25,000 square feet. And I went in there, I took my husband over there, and I'll never forget, he looked at it and we left, and he said, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "You are out of your mind." I'm like, "Just trust me, just let me do this. Just if it doesn't work, I'll go back and I'll come back in, I'll do dental hygiene, and I'll be miserable for the rest of my life." So anyways, stayed there for 10 years. 3 cranes were there, and that's where I really grew. And I sculpted, I worked my tail off. And the gallery was doing okay, opened another gallery, on and on and on. Anyway, then it became so old and antiquated that I left there, and we built out a new foundry in the Thomas, which is where I am now. It's where I'll die. I will never, ever move or open another foundry, ever. It is just taxing on any human being that is within your circle. So I have a very small crew. Joey, if I didn't have Joey, there would be no correspondence. People would have to come to the foundry if they wanted to talk to me. I'm horrible about that, but I'll get the work done. So that's the background on me. And then this is called the Lost Wax. There are other techniques and other processes that are shorter cuts, pattern making, and all these kinds of things. This is an incredibly complicated process. So I have photos to give you a visual. We'll skim over it. I'll stop in a couple of areas to see if anyone has questions so that I can move forward. But a lot of classes came from this, from teaching. When I stopped teaching, because it was so overwhelming for me, I had to pick something. My husband said, "You have to pick what you love the most." And I couldn't teach, couldn't run the galleries, and I love the foundry, and I love sculpting. So I do weekend workshops, and they're full weekends. And so I know they have painting classes, and people come in, and you bring your paint, your canvases, and you have instruction. These workshops are pretty hardcore. You come in, we actually sculpt a piece in wax, so we don't have to make any molds. And then I take your wax that you sculpt, and I cast it, finish it, and do a patina, which is the colorization, and I'll show you. So, so it's just a brief history. Bronze casting, is from 6,000 years ago. Started out in Greece. We'll keep going. Yeah. And so a lot of the early, it's just the lost wax, so it got cut off a little bit, but I think it's fine. And if you travel to Europe, Italy especially, if anyone attending any of just all of Europe mostly, you'll see the public art pieces have been forever and ever. And my technique is really no different than 6,000 years ago, except that I have gas. And so my kiln is run by gas. And so flip. These are just showing around the big pieces if anyone's really traveled and seen. Keep going. I still have, this is an updated PowerPoint, but I still keep him in here. This is our oldest son, and he was a fighter pilot for the Navy, and he just deserves to have the kudos. He's done several fighter missions, and so I always just let everyone know that he's pretty amazing. Okay, so we start out with original artwork. And so it goes kind of fast, so I don't keep you all too terribly long. But when artists come to me, They come in multimedia. Some artists are wood carvers, some artists blow glass. Most artists that are sculptors will probably work in ceramics, which is a water-based clay. If you know that you're going to go to bronze and you know that ultimately the piece that you're sculpting, you're going to want to have it cast in bronze, I highly recommend that you sculpt it in an oil-based clay. So these are early pieces. These are more current ones that I did that are all of these are oil-based clay. And they're just sculpted. They have armatures in them because they're usually bigger, except for really small ones. We don't have to use armatures, but anything larger we get. That's a whole section in my workshops that we talk about armatures. So these are all oil-based clay in the very beginning. This is an original artwork. This is currently in my foundry right now. We are going to be casting a life-size elephant. So I won't say this guy because it's a girl. It's after a real elephant named Dita that passed away probably maybe a year and a half ago, I'm told. And so she came into us as a small maquette. She was sculpted. A maquette is a small piece, and she was probably only maybe this big. So the new technology, there used to be an old way where we would do point up systems and we would hand point it up, do drawings, take calipers and measure. Took forever to point it up from a small maquette to whatever scale we wanted. Could be life size, could be 1.5, could be twice life size. This scale is an actual elephant. And but now we use the new technology, and that's where we do 3D prototyping, and we send it to be enlarged. They cut it in foam. The foam comes back to me in the foundry. We assemble it. We lay up clay. We get the texture, the flow, the movement of the piece. So this is going to be. It's cut up. You can see that the snout and the tusks and everything are off, the ears are off, and they go to mold. This is how this was the original, small, just a little thing. Keep going through that. This is an original artwork piece that came in. It was a wood carver. He worked in wood, and he brought me just this little maquette of this little plane. And he did strings, wood, all kinds of stuff on it. Thanks, Joey. And he brought it to me just like this. I dismantled it, I photographed it, I dismantled it, I made molds of it, and then it went to casting. But all the little teeny tiny, you see, there's nothing. I have a lot of artists who will come to me and they'll say, well, is it easier for me to do them if I don't have this or I don't do that? And I don't like my artists to be inhibited in any way. I want you to do whatever you need to do. And then it's my problem to get it into mold. These were small maquettes. This piece over here, all of these pieces are no larger than about 16 inches, the original artwork. And you can see that the colors in this one has an oil-based clay, really red, and the red is wax. Some people sculpt in wax like we do in my workshops. This piece down here, it was done in oil-based clay. It's over, I did this piece, it's life-size over at the Santucci, it's in front of the Santucci courthouse, in Lincoln. So these were little maquettes. I blew them up, and we'll keep going. And then we cut them up, and they go. These are traditional enlargements where we. It's not a lot of artists that will work on a life-size piece or on a larger than life-size. We usually do all of that in the foundry, and then I'll usually go in, and we want the artist to come in. You're welcome. Anyone's welcome. We have a lot of finicky artists that don't want anyone else to touch the surfaces of it, especially detailed areas like faces and eyes and mouths and all of those kind of things. So this is the piece that you saw prior that is actually in Lodi. So pressing on there. And there it is in bronze. So you saw the small little maquette, and it is toasting the harvest. It's in Lodi, and it's on their main street. And then this is my life-size one at Bo Santucci that I put in up there. And it's a lot of historical pieces I've been asked. Everything that I do now, it's kind of a curse in a way, because I don't get to just go do my own thing anymore. So everything I do are commissions. And so even though I'm so grateful for it, I'm my time, I'm only one person. I think that I have 50 hours in a day, and it's good that I had a family first, because I probably wouldn't even have a house. I would just be content living in my foundry with my little coffee and my microwave. I'd be good with that. That's kind of sad, but I can produce art. So this is a lot of the earlier pieces. This is a client that took a chance on me in the early days when I moved over to McClellan, and we did 2 lions for him. One is this 13-foot lion, and the other one is a 26-foot lion. It's one of the largest pieces, massively, that I've done. I sculpted the faces and the interior of the mouth on some of the mane. And this is my client. He's from the East Coast. And he said, I'll take a chance. We'll see what you can do with this. It's like one of those people giving you the biggest, baddest thing they have. And if you can do this okay, then I'll probably let you have some other work. So I worked very hard on that, got it done. And this is all the early stages. You can see the poles. These are armatures. And even though you see it in its entirety here, we cut it up after that. And then I'll show you the mold making. So we're still in the original stages of all these pieces. And then we get to the mold making. So you can see, again, the harvest picture. This is the beginning of the mold making. It's another art in itself. Mold making, there's a lot of artists that want to do everything themselves. And so in my teaching, I say, you want the end result. So what do you do best? And that is sculpting. You let the foundry take care of if you're going to cast it, so that you can go sculpting and you can do what you do best. You're probably not going to be the best mold maker. You're not going to be able to pour the waxes. You're not going to be able to do the whole ball of wax. So the way that this process goes is you saw the original artwork, usually a maquette. You don't have to worry about the enlargement. You just tell me how big you want it. The second stage is the mold making of it. This is where we are now. Mold making entails different materials, polyurethane. It's a rubber, several coats that go over it. We have to stage it out. We use shims. We have to cut it. We have to really engineer and think about how you're going to cut this piece to cast it in the metal. Once the rubber is applied, the polyurethane, it's very rubbery and would probably not hold the pattern well. So we have to make a mother mold that goes over that. That's out of resin and fiberglass. It's a whole another art. There are just specifically mold makers. These are 2 of my guys in the foundry. The guy on the left is one of my other boys. Probably would not have grown and had the foundry that I have had it not been for him. He's still in there with me. Once I have these artisans in with me, I have a very small crew. They know they can never leave me because I will hunt them down. They know that. So we all are artisans who work together. My son actually flies helicopters, and I felt bad keeping him in because his head is at working kind of mines like my husband, but he didn't have a commercial license, he just had a private, and I said, I kind of pulled out that guilt card, it's like, I want you to go do what you love, you go fly if you want to, but look what's here. And if you leave, and I put someone else in there, so he's been amazing. And he is a master mold maker. You have to have 10 years before you can call yourself a master in the form of this art world. So we're still, these are the coats of rubber on there. They're still doing coats. This is in the foundry. If you ever wear a new sweatshirt to the foundry, one time, you work a day, it belongs to the foundry. You will never wear it anywhere else. So anything you wear to the foundry is what it is. This is the inside of a mold right here. You can see the clay that is up inside there, and then you can see the rubber on the outside. We've opened it up. So you have the positive that comes to the foundry that you sculpted. It's a positive. We just now made it a negative in a mold. So it's a negative. It's hollow in there. It is the exact pattern of what you sculpted. A lot of times in the clay or even in wood, glass, all of those things, we tell you that we're probably not going to be able to salvage your original piece. Because you've worked on this piece for so long and you're so attached to it, and every little crevice of it, and you love it. But if you are expecting to have that back, really for what? The whole idea is to go to the bronze. And because with just the one in a water-based piece, you can go fire it, but you have that one piece. That's it. It's a one of a kind. In bronze, we can do a limited edition. When we make these molds, we can pour hundreds of pieces from this one mold. This is of the line that you saw. We sectioned it off, and if you can imagine, it was so massive that you pull all these separate pieces off to pour the wax. All of a sudden you have a couple hundred pieces of wax, and you look at it like a puzzle. It's like, oh my gosh, where does this go? Oh, this looks like a piece of nose. Oh, look, here's a piece of his tail. So we actually numbered them off. This is not how I saw it in another foundry. It was so rudimentary and so helter-skelter, if you will, that I always said in my mind, if I ever do this myself, I'm just gonna have it so something organized. So I'm a lunatic about those things. So we're still in mold making. These are the numbers of the body. So, yep. And then we get to the waxes. So now you have the positive, which was your original piece. We made the negative of the mold, and now we're bringing it back to a positive. And that's where the wax is. We're bringing it back to a positive state. I do shell casting in my foundry, which is the highest end bronze casting that you can do, because we can control in our waxes high detail, extreme detail. So all these little starfish and fish that you see here are just flat pieces. And I sculpted those for a project. They're a good example. A lot of my students will do pieces like this, but these pieces were sculpted for parks. And I actually first took these to Santa Barbara and put them on those seat walls, cement seat walls, where all the kids get up on their skateboards and they ride their skateboards across all this stuff, and they were ruining all of them. So they called me and they said, we don't want to just have these little pieces of steel, can you make some artwork? So I did fish and crabs, and they became so popular. For years I've done them, and I put them in the floor of a restaurant in the Wharf restaurant in San Francisco, where we did, my client did this wood flowing floor, and then we went in and we drilled down and did negative spaces and dropped these in, and there's these little starfish. And they're just fun. You're sitting in your chair, you look over, and did all these seashells and just all kinds of stuff. You can kind of get a weight off of this. Pass it around so you can feel what it feels like. That is a patina on there, and I'll show you the colors and all of that. So now we're at wax. So now we're bringing it back to a positive state. So now, when we pour the waxes, like if you can imagine that lion, if I just opened up and just poured a whole big wax of it and cut it up and cast it solid, that lion at 26 feet probably would have weighed, I mean, a couple of tons. It's just ridiculous. So we will pour waxes in a hollow state. So we open up the molds, it's called slushing the molds, and we slush it and we set it aside one coat and we let it dry. It's got a very thin coat on it. And we pour, once that cools off, we pour at another temperature of the wax. We start out at about, we pour it at about 200 degrees. It's so hot. And then it cools off and we pour it about 170 degrees. So it won't melt out the first coat. And then we pour another coat. And then we control the wall thicknesses of any sculpture that you see anywhere out. It will not be solid. You might think it is, but they're all hollow. And then we have to think about how we've got the positive state, but this is called the lost wax method. So I've got the exact replica of the original sculpture, and we are now creating a positive. So I have to put, it's called the gating system, and you can see the little pieces of art up here, and you can see cups. Those cups are all standing up. And then we add wax avenues or hollow streets onto the original artwork. It gets turned upside down, and then it goes into a slurry. So we're gonna go to the next. You can see my gating system. That is actually a little course that a student in my class, and it is solid. Some pieces were in catch-22 are just too small to make hollow. So anyone that's in my class, we all sculpt solid pieces because we usually sculpt a piece that's about the size of my hand, however big, but roughly about that. You can feel how heavy this was. So they're pretty weighty. And so that was a class piece. Someone sculpted this horse. And so we'll go to the next one. These are all gating systems. And you can see all the screw lines. These are all for the bronze to feed into that piece, because once these go up on these cups, we're in a positive form. I have to get them to a negative again to be able to have a pattern to pour the bronze into. So those pieces are going to go into my kiln, and I'm going to burn out all of that wax at about 2200 degrees. I'm going to burn all the wax out, and then I'm going to have a negative pattern, and I'll show you this when it comes up here. So this is what's called my ceramic investment, and this is what we call slurry. And so I mix these. I have 80-gallon tanks, and I mix these. It's flour, used silica, it's very inert material. And these have little motors that run it continuously, 24/7, it's running. And it's like a pancake batter. So what you just saw before now is the waxes. And the waxes are exact replica in the positive form. So now I'm going to dip those pieces in this pancake batter, and I'm going to put like a coat of sand on it. Comes over, it sits, it dries. After it dries, I do another coat. I do multiple coats, A, B, and C sand. C being like anybody that's made homemade ice cream, that rock salt is the consistency of it. And I build up these layers, and the wax is all inside. This is the tank, turns yellow, and then you can kind of watch and you know when it's drying. So what you saw earlier in the wax now has coats of the slurry. And that's a very light sea sand to capture all the details of that wax. And these are all of the avenues. So I'm building up another layer. So when I burn that wax out, I've got a negative space. This is in my slurry room. You can see how thick they are. I have several coats to build up strength to accept the bronze when I get ready to pour the bronze. So when you saw the yellow on the slurry ones, now they're white. I put those in my kiln. I burned them out. So for California state laws, we call it de-waxing. It really is just, we're just burning it out. And I have venting and air, and I've had so many regulations to have a bronze casting foundry. So it's not something you just set up in your backyard and, you know, and go pouring, especially here in the state of California. So I've had a lot of regulations and in all of this. So the de-wax and the casting. So we had our positive, which was your original piece. Then we made the mold, we have the negative. Then we poured a wax, we're back in a positive state. And then I put all these gates or screw lines that you see up there, burned it all out or de-waxed it. And now you can see the cup that is on the bottom is what's accepting our bronze is here, and upside down. Everything is always upside down when I pour it, because this is the cup, this is the slurry, all the wax is out of it now. I have a negative state, and now I'm bringing it back to the positive, the ultimate end of it, which is getting it into the bronze. This is my crucible. I can pour, that's called a number 70 crucible. A lot of people will pour jewelry. They'll use little 20s or 30 crucibles. Those are the sizes. It's Vesuvius, and I can use that crucible that's housing and holding my my bronze for months. I'll trade them out a little bit. They get kind of cakey in there, but I can pour about 250 pounds of metal at one time. When I go to a 90 crucible, when I'm pouring the big pieces and I'm trying to get it all into metal, I'll take a 90 crucible, which means I can pour 300 pounds of metal in one burnout casting, and then we go back to back. We try to do these big projects in the winter because there's no air ever. Don't want any humidity in the pour area of the foundry, and we wear fire suits, and it's brutal. It's just you either love it or you don't. And that's why most artists that are sculptors take their work to a foundry, and it's our job to get your piece as magnificent as we can, because there's very few sculptors that have their own foundries. So we pour, we take it. It has to be a minimum of 2000 degrees. We usually take it to about 2100 degrees, because by the time we take it off and get it all set up and get ready to pour, the heat dissipates back and it'll start to solidify, and it's a race.
And that molten metal does not deform the mold.
No.
It seems like it's such.
No, it's the heat. Yeah, it's serval, and yeah, it doesn't, the heat conductivity to it is the silicon sand, you know, and that's why there's some sand casting foundries as well, where they'll take a pattern and they'll take all the sand, lay it down, push the pattern of what they're trying to pour down into the sand, and then they'll pour right into the sand, and that's sand casting. You get a lot of porosity, you get a lot of pitting and all that. And I want, if I want pitting, I want to put it in there myself. I don't want to be dictated to, I want really fine, silky, smooth. So this is the casting. This is my kiln. These are the suits that we wear. And And we preheat those shells, so when all the wax has gone out of it, we had to drill holes into that for the wax to extrude out in the dewaxing. Then that's done. Then we go back, we seal up all those holes with fiberfrax and all kinds of different materials. It gets complicated, but we seal them all up and they go back in there, and then we preheat the shell while we're heating the crucible that you saw. So that the kiln is at around 2200 degrees, and then I have my crucible that we're taking up about 2100 degrees. They're about, they sit about 20 feet apart. And I have to have fans coming up. It will ignite a fire when you open it up. It's just, there's a lot to it. So we wear these fire suits. I'm gonna go to another picture. And so this is the kiln fully opened up. This is my older kiln, but it's still the same type of thing that we do. My son built me a brand new kiln when I first started. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Bennett's and their work, their sculpture. The Bennett, two brothers, they've been around for years. And I was casting for them. They had their own foundry in the early days of it. They had their own foundry, but the EPA closed them down because they would not comply to, I've had to comply to a lot of things. I can't just do my own thing in there. I want to, but in the end, if I'm going to teach, and I have to have everything above board and proper. But as careful as we are, safety is first. I have an HR company that's in, they come in, we do safety meetings every 6 months. And still things happen, but I always say in the foundry, I can always make another one. I don't care if the building burns down and everything goes. I just want everybody out. We got to get out of the way. So I'm my worst nightmare for myself. It takes just a second. You raise up your shield, your face is all wrapped up, you're double gloved up, you've got your fire suit on, and if you just raise that for a moment, it will encompass you. It will just suck you in. So you kind of learn one time. So one time before Christmas, that happened. Burned all the hair off the front. My eyebrows, all my eyelashes are gone. I had this big, huge scab on my forehead for Christmas. It was awesome. And, I've never done that again. I've had little things happen. Most recently, I have a big, huge blister on my hand with double gloves on. It's because you get so intent on what you're doing in there. And when you're pouring this metal, you're just so all about it, but you do have to think subconsciously, you got to get out of the way. You just do. Anyway, that's the point. This is afterwards. This is us breaking out. So that shell which was the slurry, the ceramics, is hard as a rock. It's been fired on there. It's just, we have to get hammers and chisels, and we literally break it out. And it's like, you just can't wait to get in there and see how your casting came out. And so a lot of times, and it's very raw casting, you're not going to come out all nice and silky and beautiful. We haven't done anything yet to them. So then this is, yeah. These are my ingots. This is how I melt it. My crucible goes into here, and those are how my ingots come. They're raw ingots. Sometimes I get them out of Chicago, or I get them from Los Angeles. It is called Everdure. It's 95% copper, 4% manganese, and 1% zinc. That's it. That's the highest end for bronze casting for sculptures. There are others. There's different recipes, but that's usually what most bronze casting foundries use. So I'll go to the next one. And this is what it looks like. This is how it is. This is where the crucible goes down into my furnace. And there's usually three of us pouring. We could do it with two, but I like the safety of three. I like to cool things down with air, so we don't even have to speak to each other. It's just one of those things where we just get in there and do it. I used to, before the pandemic, we would have shows. I have a gallery in the front of my foundry. We'd have shows, show everything. And I just love educating for artists, especially to know what your options are. Like, you don't have to do all of this. I don't expect that, but you can still sculpt a piece. And then that's what we do for you. But we do, when we have these parties, we bring in all these trucks and we have food and we have wine and everybody comes and hangs out. Just come for free, and then we'll do casting for the public to show everyone how it's actually done. What number am I? They're fun, but my opinion is biased. So, and this is it. This is all of our equipment picking it up. This is our casting. I mean, you can see how hot that is. It's just hot. Summer, I'm telling you, I can't even tell you, it's just so ridiculous. What number am I on in there?
Not sure.
It's on the side. Oh, that's okay. Just keep going. Same thing. This is our burnout. We'll keep going down, especially these. You can actually see the floor. We are up on grades. Just to give you a visual, that's a good picture of showing the cup, of the actual cup, and it's going down into the cups of that. We put a serval after we pour that over the top, and we let it cool off. In about a half an hour, we can actually break out the piece. Doesn't take very long. Keep going. Keep on going. We can pour multiple pieces at one time. Up to 250 pounds. So we water check these. We water check them, and then we kind of measure the gallons, so we kind of know how much we're going to melt down. Because once the metal starts to solidify, we really have to we got to back off. If we've waited too long or taken too long to pour some, all that work that you saw, all the wax work, all of the slurry, burnout, all of that, I don't want to lose all that time that we have into that. So let's keep on going. I'll back up. I'll hold it off for another pour. This is when they're out, and I'm cutting off with a hydrotherm. And it's all those gatings that you saw on the screw lines. We cut them all off to get our precious little piece out that we just cast. Keep on going. That's just my work table. Nothing. Nice. We'll paint it. This is a piece that I did for a client a long time ago. It's a very stylized camel. They were all cast in sections. You can see the sections down here. As I told you, they're all hollow. We cut the sections, and you can see here where we welded them. And it's like you can never ever see a weld, even if it's textured. This is very smooth. It gets very complicated when we finish things out. Very smooth pieces are called 320 finishes. You know, we get into 180 finishes. This is just welding the piece together. We use hydraulics, all kinds of different things. This is a bear that I did with another artist. It went to the Midwest. And you can see all the sections. So this picture was, I use this picture a lot because you can see all the sections that you saw numbered, even though that was the line that we did. This is all numbered, and we cast those. And the numbers on the back side of them, like our puzzle we put together, put in the base and all of that. It's all welded together. And then it's called chasing, where we have bronze casting finishers. And I have two that are been with me forever and ever, amazing, welding it together. And this is what the bronze colors look like before. This is a piece that we did for the Olympic Training Center. I did this years ago, probably 12 years ago. This is one of the Olympians that we did. We did 4 Olympians. Keep on going. I'm gonna try to go through this faster. little pieces. That's my line in the foundry. Hoisted up. I really don't like heights. I have a really hard time with heights. I'm not good with that. So that's, I mean, I have other patching millers, but I'm applying the chemicals onto that. These are the 4 Olympians that I was telling you about. We built, we do fabrications as well. So we did the castings of the 4 Olympians, and then we fabricated the world. So it's a 40-foot globe that we set on their backs, and it's at the Olympic Training Center. These are patinas. This is what I call the frosting on the cake. So now we have, I skipped through a lot of things, but it's just so overwhelming. The process is very complicated. But so we have the casting, we've welded everything together, and we've chased it all out to get whatever the artists have done on the, if it has a lot of the texture or if it's smooth. And then we go to the world of patinization. And this is really where I thought, oh, this is going to be, this is the best part of it. It's like the frosting on the cake. It's like the hardest part for me because back in the day, before I started doing patinas, for my dental hygiene, I had to have a chemistry class, and I never loved the sciences. I wasn't passionate. I had to work hard with it, you know. And my husband, that's his deal. That's his brain. So I had this chemistry class, and I was like a child in college. I was like a child. I went back to school, and I was like a child. I'd cry, I'd sit there and start crying because I couldn't do this chemistry class. And he said, I'm telling you, you don't know when, but someday you will use that. Maybe just one time, but you will use it. And I remember sitting there bawling my eyes, and it's like, fine, when you're done bawling, let me know and I'll help you with this. So that chemistry class, when I started doing my patinization, was like my best friend. Killed me to tell him how right he was, but I did thank him to tell him that he was right, because all the chemicals are all about chemistry. And I use very basic things, but I use ammonium sulfide, I use liver of sulfur, sulfur nitrate, cupric nitrate, things that you wouldn't otherwise even have an idea about. But they're like, the sculptures are my canvases, and those chemicals are my paint. And I apply them with propane heat. They only will react when they are with the heat. Some hotter, might have a thick area. So I went up to Washington and I studied with this guy named Patrick Kipper, who is just a guru. And I thought, oh, I'll just go up there. 8 days I was there. I had all my equipment. I came back to the foundry. I was like, yes, I got this. And I came back and I couldn't do it. It wasn't happening. It was horrible. I said, oh my gosh, I'm just never going to be able to do these. But it just takes a lot of time and application. Most artists never do their patinas. I have to hear you telling me, oh, I want this more blue. Oh, I want this baby blue. Oh, I want this teal blue. And those are all of the things. And so I usually have the artist there while I'm shooting patinas. So there's the patina on our lion. This is at Thunder Valley. I did this with Doug Van Hout. He's an artist up in Auburn. And I'm on site doing the patina out there. These are all patinas. You can see my propane heat, and I'm shooting here. And I usually apply it with brushes, and I'll mix up a lot of things in bottles and spray bottles or brushes, and that's how I apply it. And then I have to, I never thought about it, but building these big, huge things, and all of a sudden it's like I have to pack them up. I have to do infrastructure. I had to educate myself on the interior of these big pieces that a lot of them needed structural engineers. So when we got to that, I thought, how hard can this be? I do have structural engineers that I work with, And they'll tell me, Ronnie, you have to have this, we have to go do their drawings, they're all about the numbers, they look down in it. And they don't see the art, they see all the numbers, they see the interior. So I've been so fortunate that I've had people put up with me that keep the integrity of the art and the sculpture while we are building this infrastructure, the interior of it that is required by all these different entities that I work with. And so I learned that, and that again was where I wasn't really well received in the early days, when I found some people that took a chance with me. A lot of people didn't want to work with me, structural engineers, in the early days because I didn't have the experience. So then I have trucking companies that so this February is 24 years for me, and I've met so many people, and I still use the same trucking companies, shippers, structural engineers. One guy retired, but he said, call me, I'll still do your drawings for you. And this was us installing, this went to Queen's University in North Carolina. It's endless, I could just go endless. Was very proud of this piece. I have never ever been in humidity in my whole life living in California. So when we went to install that crazy lion, I drank more water, and like one day I thought something happened to me. I thought something was wrong with me. I went to one of the people that were there that were helping us, and I said, something's happening to me. I drink more water in one day than I do in 3 days. You know, it's just, so here's our lion still going with that, guys. And then I'll just show you, this is when we were doing the enlargement. That was how little he was. That was the digital scanning. Digitally scan them, get up the phone, keep going on now, so get to these. Currently, my current piece right now is, I just had my little piece enlarged. I just sculpted a 15-foot Virgin Mary. For everyone says, oh, what church is she going to? She is going to a ski resort in Shasta, Mount Shasta. So she's all sculpted. A lot of things I can't post out in the media and all that yet until my contracts are done. People are get all finicky and poopy about it. We'll just keep going. Yep, those are, you can see the sections of how, and this was before the clay. So this is in the milling part of it. You can see where the lines are where we cut. And that is when it first came back from milling. This is my Virgin Mary. She was very perfect in the little maquette. She got sent out. Then I lay up clay. So I heat up the clay like in a crock pot, very basic stuff, slather it all up, but I have the form of it. And then I sculpt it in my oil-based clay. So that's Virgin Mary's face. And that head is about this tall by about like this because she's 15 feet. Yeah, this is just, it's my son Eric. This is just all of this working in there. Jason's been with me forever. Very small crew. These are completed sculptures. This is a line I did in the very early days. It's been very popular for me. It's like once I do something, I don't know, as artists, once you do something, sculpting is very different. But painting, you know, it's not like you do a painting, you're not going to go do the same painting again or do it 3 times. In sculpting, you can make subtle changes, and then there's laws and there's limited editions, and it goes on and on and on. But I wanted to do some small pieces that were more affordable for the gallery. So these are stories. My son, who was stationed in Japan, I went to Japan, and I met these amazing artists, and I went to look at all their kilns that were 200 years old, and I got so inspired. And these are stories in Japanese kanji, Chinese kanji, that all tell a story. So they have been in here, and I just did this limited edition of a series. So there are 5 different vases that I did. And then I had them in my galleries, and I did a limited edition on each one of them. So they all have stories. This means friends. This one has longevity. Those are the 4 seasons. And basically we all speak the same language. You know, and I learned that, so I corresponded with him and I would send him English and he'd send me back things, so that's just one series that I did. This is, I did a Falcon Stadium in Colorado Springs with another artist, John Hare, the one I showed you with the line in the beginning. These are multiple artists that come to me, bring me their work. These are completed. These are all patinas. You can see how different they are. We can make some patinas look like they have a stone, if they might be made of stone. This dude right here, I still keep him in there. I lost him last year. He came to the foundry every day in my sweatshirts. He looks all furry and big there and stuff, but he only weighed like 2.5 pounds, and he'd come in my sweatshirt pockets. And he lived to 18 years. So he was probably very beginning of that. This sculpture right here was actually done by another artist. I did the patinas. We cast it and finished it, and I did the patina on it. And we just before Christmas, we installed it at Capitol Park. Things get very controversial sometimes. I don't get involved politically. Everybody they try to come, they'll try to do an interview, and I just do the art. But this is where the Father Sarah was in Capitol Park for a number of years. He was removed, and the Native Indians took back the land. And so we did this sculpture and just recently put it in. These are smaller pieces. I did a whole bunch of ducks down in the Bay Area for this shopping center, and they just make people happy. You know, they're just fun pieces. I did that duck, and I never want to do another duck again. Remember I showed you the little airplane earlier on? This guy's a woodworker. He this piece went to the Smithsonian. He is amazing, and he built all of these ships, and he would bring them in wood, and then we cast them. This piece here was done by Yosho Taylor. He's a ceramist. He taught for years. He was the reason why I started teaching.
Is that Roseville City Hall?
This is
Yeah.
correct. We did that years ago for him, and actually needs to be restored. Needs new captainization. This is in Roseville. This is a piece I did for the building. I do abstract things. I do people. It's kind of a little bit of a curse. Some people, when you're painting, some people love to do trees. Love to do people. That's a current one I did for Laguna Niguel. It's the history of their city. So I sculpted all of these little bas reliefs that are the history of their city, goes all the way around. And then it's right next door to a butterfly sanctuary. So on the very tip of my ribbon, it's 15 feet up. I did the butterfly, I did all the butterflies. So I'm over the butterflies now. This is in Lake Tahoe. I did for City College, coyote. They called me and said, hey, can you do a coyote? And I said, of course. So I'm thinking of a scrappy, ugly, little scrappy fighting coyote. So I did some drawings for them. That's how it starts out. Send them up there and they're like, no. Our coyotes are all furry and beautiful. They don't look like a skinny little scrapper. I'm like, oh, okay. So I did this bushy tail, maybe like one jumping over a log. I'm like, okay. So you do drawings, give it to them, and voila. This is a seal I did, also for San Francisco, went along. Those are the other ones that went so the skateboarders won't tear up the stuff. It's endless. You can just, it's these are kind of fun. I'm not really an animal sculptor, but I was like, okay, I can do people, so how hard can it be? This is my main thing, are doing people. This guy in the end over here is a current one. These are there's just tons of them, but these are just showing the examples. This guy here, they sent me a photograph, and he was the mayor for Fresno, and they built a transportation building. So I just sculpted him, we just recently put him in, but you can see the blue eyes. And I'm not a big fan of doing colorization on people, but that's what they wanted. It was a big deal to have his blue eyes in on there. These are all called classic patinas. This is classic. It's really the same color, just diluting it. It stays forever and ever and ever, years past our lifetimes. So you okay? And but then you can see this green on this one with a very classic color, it's Cooper's nitrate. And so it's kind of a nice contrast into figurative pieces. This is a client that I have that she does just these really just whimsical, fun horses. And they're so beautiful. This is a guy that took my class years ago. And he said, I don't want to sculpt anything in your class. I just want to come and I just want to learn the process. I'm not going to sculpt anything. I'll just listen. I'll sit over here. I'll be real quiet. And I'm like, no, everybody has to sit. So everybody sculpts something in wax. So he sculpted this crazy, ghastly looking hand. It's just so messed up. And he said, I'm just going to put that on the table and throw my keys in it when you come in the house. That's what I'm going to do. But he was a retired cardiac surgeon. And he's just wanting, he said, I've always wanted to do this. Anyway, he went home and he called me and he says, I got to come back for one more class because I just need a little bit more guidance with this wax. I'm like, yeah, come for sure. So he comes. Anyway, he ended up, his wife told me that he turned their kitchen all into wax. Just, she said, I had to get him out and get him into the garage. But he did all of these pieces. And he only sculpts in wax. And he lived here and then he moved to Texas. So I'll get a box all wrapped up and there'll be this amazing wax in there. So I make his molds from wax. And so these are limited editions and he's been amazing. These are called bas reliefs. These are all because these are at McClellan. If you drive by Old McClellan, these are on the front out there. They have an aviation museum. I did just a bunch of bas reliefs. Those are flat. Bas reliefs are flat pieces. This is, I started these. This is a series that I started doing because coming from dentistry, I use this alginate. And I can take impressions of people's hands and then I can work them in wax, put them in different positions. And we call them a whole lot of love. I've done people that have been 50th anniversary. I've done children, babies' feet, and they've just been a mainstay from the very beginning. So people will call me and say, hey, I have a new grandson, blah, blah, blah. These are some of my work that I just didn't have to do for someone else. I just have this thing in my head and they're safes and they open up, they have a lock and they are like heirloom pieces. So I did 2 of them. I thought I was going to do all of these cases. I ended up doing 2 limited editions and I'm over it. so yeah, these are restorations. So this is, you see stuff when you're out and about and you see something that's all black and green and all nasty looking like these, and then I can kind of bring them to life. I'll keep going faster on this on the restoration. Oops. Go back. Can you go back? Oh, it's okay.
No.
This is a before on a restoration. I've been working a lot in Hawaii and Maui and they had the fire and all of that. And so this is a before, really messed up piece. And then that's after. So I can bring it back to life with the chemicals and the patina.
So your pieces did last, they survived the fire?
There are some, not in the galleries in Lahaina. Yeah, I mean, there's some that can be restored, but yeah, they're pretty bad shape. It's the saddest name. It's just, yeah. But some of them can be. This is a before, this is farther down in Wailea, and then that's an after. So I'll go when pieces are out, they don't care for them. If people would just wax them, they wouldn't need to be restored, but people don't know that. And this is my last one. This is a before and after. This is a sculptor that I've worked for a number of years. I do a ton of stuff for him. And he had this out in a jar and they never took care of it, so I restored it and it's back to that. So that is really the broadcasting story. And workshops, a lot of people that don't know, I mean, when COVID happened, I really stepped away. They tried to, they said it weren't essential. And I said, bring some handcuffs and a straight jacket and I'll leave. It was pretty, yeah, I had so much work and we wear masks in there every day. I said, what's the difference? So I really didn't teach. I didn't have workshops, none of my classes. It was sad, but I got a ton of work done in there. And, you know, sculpting, in the early, there's, I haven't been able to publish it out yet, but, I did a 8-foot Iron Man. I think you saw the play early on, the very first pictures. And he's all cast now and he'll be going down, but I have one more commission and then I'm gonna try to do some of my own things again. It's teaching, it's so rewarding. You can come up and you can just take a look, so you can hold them and feel what it feels like. But I have like, you're gonna see all these hearts, reflect hearts. And when you pour metal, there'll be splashes of bronze that come out. So through the years, I started picking up these little pieces. And then I went in the back and I started cutting them. And I make all these are called lovey bugs. And there's never one heart that's ever the same. I have done hundreds of these hearts and they're never ever the same. And so they're just fun and easy. But what I do is the lovey bugs, they're called lovey bugs because my first little grandson named him a lovey bug. And on the back of these hearts that are one of a kind, just like people are, I engrave like their grandchild's name on the back of it, or their mother's name, or just whomever, a spouse's name, if there's no children, you know, all those kinds of things.
How do you keep them shiny?
That's just the bronze. I polished them, those are 320 finishes.
Gary or Linda?
You know, you can see like this has a chemical on it.
She's not in the room anymore.
Okay, is Gary still there? I was just gonna ask if they turn the camera towards where Ronnie is.
That's really beautiful.
Oh, it's so pleasure to share her. So if anybody's like, if you get a card and stuff, you can call Joey. We have another class coming out, my first
Thank
one
you.
since the pandemic. And the classes are only 15 people because we're Saturday and Sunday, we're one-on-one. We're in the wax.
Did you do the mountain lion that's in Douglas? Is
I
it
did not.
surprise? So is there another foundry in the Sacramento
Yeah,
area?
not
Or
in
that
Sacramento, not
came from
anymore.
somewhere else?
The nearest county to me is in Berkeley.
You wanted to.
Some of them are cast elsewhere in the Midwest, because we go to the Midwest, we go East Coast, you know, it just depends. And a lot of these commissions happen to really large committees. It's not like one person calling you up. I mean, there's quite a thing you have to go through, you know. I mean, you wouldn't love it, you wouldn't want it. If you really truly weren't passionate and didn't love it, you would not want to go through it.
Well, it looks very difficult. Yes, it's very scary. Difficult. Thank you, Ronnie.
Oh,
I
it's
really
a
appreciate you
Yeah.
being here.
Oh, it's such a special. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and anytime, anybody, you can check with Joey, you can come through. We'll have the public open. So